risk, though, of not also emphasizing the importance of actually increasing inputs in developing countries? I just wonder if there's a danger of that getting lost, because it seems to me the effort to get more per input needs to be higher in wealthy countries that already use a lot of inputs, whereas poor countries really need more inputs in order to increase their productivity. And then one other question on TFP, what about labor? Some of us were just in the meeting this morning where there was a lot of emphasis on linking up to smallholders for food security, not just increased productivity, which is, I think, the emphasis here. So if your goal is to basically get the same output per unit of labor, how do we then address the need to increase employment and increase livelihoods among poor farmers?
Keith?
No, those are very good. Those are very good points, and I think that the answer is that what we anticipate seeing globally will vary a lot regionally, depending upon factor resource endowments of different countries. And obviously, I think in sub-Saharan Africa, where there's very, very little fertilizer use and a lot of nutrient depletion, I mean, it's essential that fertilizer increase along with other technologies that will make sure that fertilizer is efficiently used. And also, we should anticipate that in countries where agriculture continues to supply the bulk of labor and where population is still growing rapidly, that agriculture will continue to absorb more labor. But what we've seen in Latin America and emerging in many Asian countries is that the agricultural labor forces have really peaked there, and that we should anticipate having to grow output using fewer workers, but really raising labor productivity. But certainly in countries that have very low wages, large share of their population still rural-based, agricultural will continue to provide more employment, and that will be one source of output growth. And raising the productivity of those workers will further enhance their well-being.
Thanks, Hugh. Yes.
Yeah, Dr. Alan Koslow. I'm the state chair of the American Diabetes Association and also a commentator on one of the local radio stations.
Great.
And my question comes down to some of the issues that you didn't look at that are really the elephant in the room type of issues, and climate change and the fact that we may lose somewhere between 20 and 40% of arable land over the next 40 years, and that there's estimates that we could have up to mass migrations that'll make population migrations that'll make the migrations we've seen from wars pale in comparison. Estimates of close to 1 billion people may migrate over the next 20 to 40 years because of environmental change. Are you planning to, at some point, add those analyses into your report? And what have been your thinking so far in those two aspects?
Well, in the future, we could. I can't speak to the future. What we say now is it's an added variable. In other words, there's lots of variation. There's income growth, there's population growth, etc. Then the challenges environmentally. Now, the impact of global warming, and that adds additional volatility, additional uncertainty is what we've said so far. I wish I could answer you about the future, but
it looked like Neil had.
I was gonna. I had a.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say.
Yikes.
I want to reinforce what Bill said, that the imperatives associated with climate change just magnify the need to focus on increasing productivity, because there are going to be parts of the world, I'm sure, as a result of change, where we will experience some declines in productivity with climate change. There may be some others where we experience some increases. Certainly this is an area that the foundation is doing some work in. I can't speak to what's going to appear in next year's report or whatever, but I can't imagine that over time you won't see us begin to address that dimension of this problem as well.
Do you have anything? Yes.
Yeah, Shengen Fan from International Food Policy Research Institute, based in Washington,
Right.
very close to EIS. Keith, have you looked at the output side? Change or shift from lower value crops to higher value crops, or even subsectors? Output side. side, TFP, in addition to agriculture research, investment in rural infrastructure, in education, probably have also played a very large role. You mentioned about China, you mentioned about Brazil, having investment in rural infrastructure and rural education, probably research.
Yeah, thank you, Sheng, and those are great points. The output side is.
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Ted.
Okay. Well, first of all, what Sheng really pointed out is we can also raise productivity by moving into more higher valued production, especially by allowing, through trade liberalization, for example, that allows countries to focus on those commodities where they have a comparative advantage. So you're basically then getting more value of output for the same level of resources. That is another way of raising total factor productivity. So that's, and we have seen that occur in some countries. I think Malaysia is a good example where they have really focused on perennial crops for export, and they say, for our food and grain resources, we're going to import them from countries that can do it much more efficiently. They've also invested a lot in research. They tax those exports to invest in research, and their TFP growth has been over 3% over the last 35 years. So this is another area where trade liberalization and better market incentives can also, and by moving into these more commodities where you have a better comparative advantage, can be another source of growth. Now, on